Being a hero is supposed to be the dream. You get the applause, you get the rewards, you get the princess. But what if being called hero wasn't all it was meant out to be? What if it was actually the punishment instead? That is the core idea behind Sentenced to be a Hero. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this might be my new anime of the year. And I'm specifying a new because I do like me some Freyr in Season 2 in Fire Force. This anime doesn't really feel like, the old run-of-the-mill power fantasy we get heaps of per year. It feels like you accidentally click like New Game Plus in Dark Souls and you're forced to play it until your bones are quaking, In most fantasy isekai stories, the hero is usually like some sacred title. It's the destined fate everyone wants just to be the main character. But in this world, it's basically just becoming a tool for the government with no other choice, as even death is not an option. You're not chosen because you're some special being. You're chosen because you have probably committed some heinous crimes against humanity. And this little twist, as well as the general art style, made this really stand out to me. In this anime, heroes are made to be heroes because they committed severe crimes, and now forced to do whatever for eternity. And even in death, they just come back, just left to themselves until they slowly hollow away. This is the ultimate punishment in this world. Eternal torture. Unable to atone for your sins as you keep being used as what is essentially cannon fodder until somehow you break the cycle, or just end up losing yourself in the process. So what actually happens? Why do heroes exist in the first place? The story opens in a world where heroes aren't these mythical chosen saviors. They're people, criminals used for war. A war fought against demons and demon lords, which spread this demon blight wherever they go, almost like a Valorant player. In response to this, humans designed weapons of mass destruction called goddesses, the most powerful weapon against demons. However, they're very rare, and pick a chosen knight to be their user. Knight can be anyone, by the way. Knight is a title in this regard. This is where our main character Xylo comes in, a hero working as part of a band of fellow heroes, under the state's rule of course. Being used as essentially just cannon fodder to protect actual knights and actual humans, also in quotation marks. Basically think of hero as a very high form of degradation in this world. Also, don't worry, of course the goddesses happen to be really cute anime girls with really expressionate faces, or else this show would be way too dark, kinda like Puck from Berserk, and also highly marketable, which, a bonus. Anyways, speaking of the tone, what immediately stood out to me is kind of how this show leans much more into seinen, which is the genre made for adults or young adults, more mature than shonen. And thankfully not in the, oh, we're edgy because we're edgy kind of way. But, earn the edge. The world is built around this concept. It shows how horrible being a hero is. The characters know this is a tragic life to live, how powerless they are to those in charge. It's not like this gruff character is, an edgy man for no reason. It's about someone who knows just how, well, dire being a hero is. Especially when, their reasons for being a hero are unknown, I'll say for spoilers' sake. Xylo was an ex-soldier made hero. He was already extremely capable of fighting, but now has to do it for eternity. So, it's understandable that he's, gruff, war-hardened, not just, yeah, I'm an edgy guy. The first episode is almost an hour long with movie quality animation at points. The studio has quite a bit of confidence in this show to pull a move like that. That's a lot of time and money. Most shows nowadays you will see within the first episode try to push things like to set up the main plot and premise like almost right away. Sentenced to be a Hero sort of does this, but they do it in a very diegetic way. They don't just narrate to themselves, I'm a hero. But in this world, that's not a good thing. Better not die, carefully. This show's refreshing. There's no like status screen showing, how powerful they are. It just feels more mature than a lot of recent anime I've been seeing. Don't get me wrong, it definitely still has, the common shonen tropes, flashy fights, set character tropes, a cute anime girl that's, very marketable for them. But it feels darker, and the art style definitely helps this. There is this kind of bleakness to the world and the general art style that reminds me of the oppressive atmosphere of Dark Souls. Yes, I mentioned Dark Souls again. Guys, I think I might like Souls. And another reason it reminds me of Souls, the whole coming back thing after death. Forever until you eventually just go hollow, you lose your mind. You just turn into this violent husk of who you used to be. Fighting not because you want to, but because you literally have no choice but to. Also, the English voice acting is really good. I know, wah, sub better. After I watched this, I literally had to write a script for it, so I was not reading subs as well, then reading a script. The English voice acting is just pretty good. It definitely suits the characters. Xylo's voice fits him really well. Some scenes it does sound a little bit edgier than, I think it deems necessary for, but it's kind of understandable. So visually is where the anime locks in immensely. The art style is like kind of pretty sharp but still pretty grounded, not overly flashy or overly out there. The line art has this really nice texture in some scenes, almost looks like very pastel but still keeps its dark appeal. The animation and style in general is just incredible. It reminds me of the Castlevania anime a bit, with this sort of gloomy tone in the way they draw the eyes. You can see the expressions on the characters' faces really well. Their emotions, their little movements, movements, just stuff like that's really, I would say, immersive kind of. Now, I said earlier, the fights are pretty flashy, a lot less down to earth than, say, you know, Berserk per se, but they still have this really nice weight to them, both physically and emotionally. People dying in this war against demons is shown as this horrid, tragic thing. Death is not really as trivialized as I'll see in like a lot of anime, where this big explosion wipes out millions and, you know, no one really cares afterwards. But it emphasizes how important the heroes are among normal humans, yet get looked down upon and still kicked around and, you know, spat on. The animation isn't, you know, like Studio Trigger levels of constant flow, but it's still insanely good. Plus, you know, I do love a main character with a big cloak. You never would have guessed it, I know. Unlike most anime, when characters learn of a hero, they treated Hero with like pure disgust, as if they're looking at a monster, even if they just saved their life. So far, I'm really liking their style animation. I hope it stays pretty consistent, and, you know, this praise does not come back to bite me in the ass later on. But yeah, I just hope they stay this consistent. Currently, there are 7 episodes out, so hopefully. Now, within this world, a lot of the lines are blurred, because heroes are made heroes because they committed heinous crimes. However, the system that deemed them to be turned into heroes also aren't exactly the good guys. You see this in the first episode alone, that the state makes some very questionable choices in regards to their men. You know, it's in the first episode, it's not entirely a spoiler. But I like that because it doesn't just critique the heroes, it critiques the system that put them in that role to begin with. Because, you know, who's to say what kind of crimes are even deemed as heinous to be sentenced to eternal war until they wither away? Sure, there's, you know, morally grey themes, but no one is really, you know, the definitive bad guy from what I've seen so far. Because from a logical standpoint, if we ignore all ethics behind it, the hero system isn't entirely horrible. The scum of society, you know, forced to fight to protect those innocent that they probably traumatized or, you know, might have took a loved one. But again, is eternal war and suffering justifiable for making someone slowly lose himself for, you know, maybe one thing they did? And who's to say that was of their own free will to begin with? I just kind of find that, you know, ambiguity pretty interesting. It's so much different from the abundance of funniness anime we've been getting, you know, titles like that time to get reincarnated as a cheeky goblin. You know, they also have an actual pretty unique magic system, you know, not the most advanced I've seen, but, you know, more interesting, you know, just your basic, yes, I cast Fireball. Not everyone is capable of using, you know, magic, and even those who do are required tools to do so, and sigil, as well as some, you know, actual Magitech elements. And I'm really hoping the show sticks to this direction. Now, there's only 7 episodes out, so it could still nosedive into both quality animation or just general story, but I'm hoping it doesn't. The previous episodes have been pretty highly rated, and I agree, but things can change pretty quick as we've seen with past anime. But the fact that one was an hour long is, I don't think they'll start rushing it out, thankfully. So I won't call it like a masterpiece just yet, but I'm saying it does deserve the attention it's getting, as I hope to look back on this video and be like, yeah, that aged well, not a comment saying, well, this aged poorly, didn't it? But yeah, I wanted to make a quick video on this today because I really like it so far, and I'm hoping it stays consistent. You know, maybe a slight bias because it has a lot of things I like, but still, yeah. I just wanted to yap about this for a while, so stay punished, I think, and thank you for 1K. See ya.